Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is literally shifting the foundation of how artificial intelligence thinks and generates language. If you've ever sat there and wondered how large language models actually construct their responses behind the scenes, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're unpacking a fascinating piece of research from ByteDance Seed that fundamentally redesigns the whole architecture of language generation.
Now, what if I told you that a basic assumption we all make is actually holding AI back? When we interact with AI today, it kind of feels like it's typing out its thoughts just like we do, right? One word after another, reading and generating strictly from left to right. But what if that strict sequential ordering is a massive bottleneck? What if, to get truly high-quality, globally reasoned text, an AI shouldn't read or write left to right at all?
Okay, let's dive into this. The current status quo in the AI industry relies really heavily on what we call autoregressive models. Now, these systems are incredibly powerful, no doubt about it, but they operate by calculating probabilities for the next token based entirely on the previous ones. They are completely locked into a fixed sequential path. It's a rigid limitation, and it makes reasoning across a really long response inherently difficult, because the AI is essentially trapped in a one-way street of its own words.
So, to break this all down, our explainer is going to follow a really clear structure today. First, we'll look at the left-to-right limitation. Second, we'll introduce the Cola DLM. Third, we'll crack open how Cola actually works. Fourth, we'll see what happens when it's put to the test. And finally, we'll talk about what this means for the future of AI.
All right, Section 1, the left-to-right limitation, and the core problem with word-by-word AI.
So why is this limitation such a big deal? Well, because high-quality text generation, especially the kind that requires complex logic or global planning, just shouldn't be handcuffed to a strict sequential order. Think of it like this. Current autoregressive AI acts a lot like an improviser. It steps onto the stage, starts talking, and generates text on the fly without a real global plan. It's basically just hoping the sentence makes sense by the time it hits the period. And that really limits its reasoning flexibility. What we actually want is an architect. An architect drafts the big picture first, right? They lay down the continuous blueprint of the entire structure, and only after that do they start placing the individual bricks, or in the AI's case, the individual words.
Moving right into Section 2, enter the Cola DLM, a completely new paradigm for language.
Now, what's really interesting about this research from ByteDance Seed and their academic partners is the name itself. It's called the Continuous Latent Diffusion Language Model, or Cola DLM for short. Instead of just guessing the next discrete word, it uses hierarchical information decomposition, which I know is a really fancy way of saying it builds the big concepts before the small details. It sounds incredibly dense, but it's actually a beautifully elegant concept.
It maps perfectly to this absolutely crucial analogy, human thought versus human speech. When you or I think of a really complex idea, we don't think in a strict left-to-right sequence of dictionary words. We form this broad, continuous concept in our minds first, a sort of thought space. Only when we open our mouths do we serialize that broad thought into sequential, discrete words. And Cola DLM does exactly this. It plots the continuous blueprint of meaning before speaking the discrete words.
Okay, Section 3, how Cola actually works. Let's peel back the curtain a bit. Looking at the comprehensive workflow, please don't let the technical complexity overwhelm you. Just notice how it's structurally separated. The outer edges deal with regular, discrete text, but the center, the diffusion transformer, works entirely in what's called a latent space. You can think of latent space as a purely mathematical realm of concepts and meaning, completely independent of specific words. It fundamentally separates the global meaning from the local text generation.
Let's move through this and see how it builds across 3 specific phases. Step 1 is pre-training the text VAE. This essentially learns how to map discrete text into a continuous latent space. Basically, it's creating that thought space we talked about. Step 2 is pre-training the block causal DIT, or diffusion transformer. This is where the model learns the global semantic structure. It learns how to actually organize those thoughts. And finally, step 3 is inference, where the model takes that fully formed continuous thought and uses a decoder to translate it back into readable text.
So the absolutely crucial point to take away here is this. Diffusion is used in this model for shaping ideas, not just for recovering missing words. In a lot of other models, diffusion might be used to guess missing text directly. But here, the diffusion process is operating purely in the realm of meaning and semantics. It organizes the big picture first and delegates the actual word-by-word realization to a completely separate process.
Let's jump to Section 4, putting Cola to the test. Let's look at the scaling and the hard evidence. When we look at the performance data across the task average and MLU benchmarks, pay special attention to that clear upward trajectory of the orange lines, which are labeled joint DIT X1. The researchers compared a few different ways to train this model up to nearly 400 EFLOPs, and the data proves that when the latent space and the diffusion transformer are jointly trained together from a stable starting point, the model's accuracy steadily increases with scale. Basically, it legitimately gets smarter the more computing power you give it.
These experiments also revealed some really fascinating insights into evolving this continuous thought space. If you just fix the VAE space, the model's learning saturates super early. If you try to train it completely from scratch, it lacks structure and just collapses. As we just saw, joint training on a stable initialization is the clear winner here. And furthermore, applying semantic guidance, which is basically a mathematical rule to ensure the concepts flow smoothly together, is absolutely critical to maintaining a meaningful thought space.
The researchers also experimented with the actual dimension of this latent space. If you look at training from scratch, increasing the dimensionality from 16 to 64 up to 128 pushes the task average from 8.7 up to 11.8. But here's the catch: simply throwing more dimensions at the problem isn't the whole answer. True success actually relies much more on stable joint training and properly calibrating the noise used during the diffusion process, which basically means teaching the model exactly how to refine a really blurry concept into a sharp, clear idea.
They also had to optimize what's called the block size for the diffusion transformer. And the magic number they found? It was 16. A block size of exactly 16 provided the perfect trade-off in their experiments. It was perfectly balanced between capturing the local, fine-grained details of the text while still maintaining that broad, global semantic aggregation required to act like our architect.
Which brings us to Section 5, the future of AI, and moving beyond discrete words.
You see, the true impact of the Cola DLM approach goes far, far beyond just text. Yes, it eliminates those strict left-to-right processing biases, but more importantly, it directs a concrete path to unified multimodal modeling. Think about it. Images and videos are already processed by AI as continuous data. By turning text into a continuous space, Cola fundamentally makes language compatible with vision and audio at a structural, probabilistic level.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really provocative thought I want to leave you with. What happens when AI seamlessly speaks, draws, and imagines all from one unified, continuous thought space? We are officially moving away from an AI that improvises one word at a time toward an AI that architectures entire multimodal concepts simultaneously. It is a massive technological leap and one that is absolutely going to reshape the tools we use tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay focused, and I'll see you in the next one.